there's a trick I use a lot. If I think a lot of the times in terms of what can the light see, and if there's something on the set, like if I'm looking at this shot and the right side of the TV has a lot of light, but the left side of the TV doesn't, I'll go over and just stick my head in that dark spot and see what's blocking the light. And then I can tell my crew, move it a little that way, move it a little, and then when I see the light, I know that the light is hitting me and hitting where I want the light to fall.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Big League Film School. You just heard a nice, quick little tip from Art Adams. The man is no joke. We got tons of little tidbits like that throughout. We break down one of his pieces, lots of shots within it. He really tells us how he went about it, how he did it, what lights he was using, all of that good stuff. And if you don't know who Art Adams is, well, you need to know, because he's really doing big things. He's got a lot of posts that he does on Pro Video Coalition and DV Info, and if you check that stuff out, you'll see that he's just given us so much good information to work with. He talks about, as you can see here, how to use ND filters, working with making a show reel, lighting flat, 4K. He shot stuff for Sony, every big name you can imagine: Sony, Canon, Microsoft, all these big brands that you can think of. The guy's on top of his game, been doing it for 25 plus years, and we got a good interview ahead of us right now, and lots of good stuff. Also, for those who don't know, we're cooking up a unbelievable, basically, cinematography event. I'm not going to say too much more than that until it's really, well cooked and simmering, and I'll let everybody know all the details. But Art's going to be one of the presenters, and he's going to really come with the heat, going to give us some good stuff. So look forward, stay tuned, and look out for that. We'll give you all the information. And without further ado, let's do it. Okay, hello, Art. Thanks for joining us here at Big League Film School.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Absolutely.
I really like the site. You got some great stuff on there.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. You know, the reason why I wanted to have you on, besides seeing all your stuff on Pro Video Coalition and other blogs like that, I saw recently on Reddit that you were answering people's questions on cinematography. And let me tell you, that is such a huge service that you're doing to the community. I mean, I saw some of the questions on there, and it's really topics that people really need, and you didn't hold back. You gave long, good, full answers, and I got a lot out of it just going back on the questions and reading it.
Cool. Yeah, no, that was fun, and I got a lot from a number of people who trained me up, and when I started out, the internet was a pipe dream. I mean, it was around, but it wasn't. It was all military. It wasn't a consumer-oriented thing at all. So it's kind of fun to have this way of communicating with people and passing on stuff that I've learned. I figured that one of my mentors said, "I want you to learn from my mistakes so you can go out and make more interesting and original mistakes." And I think that's a great idea. Why do the same things I did? Go out and try something new, and learn from a different set of mistakes. Don't reinvent everything. If you have to reinvent everything, you're just wasting a lot of time. And I'd rather see people go off and do cool new stuff.
I think that's amazing that you just said that. Go out and make mistakes. You hear that a lot. I hear that a lot in business talk. People think you have to start a business and you're just going to be a success. And anybody who's in the business world will tell you, start something, try it, you'll fail, no big deal, try the next one, you'll learn from it and go on. And you're saying the same thing, from on an artistic standpoint. And I think a lot of people think that they just have to know. They have to already know what they're doing. And I think they don't put enough emphasis on the experimental aspect of it.
Well, it's fun to see all the things over the course of cinematographic history that used to be mistakes, and now lens flares. Lens flares used to be a big no-no, and now we're on the Star Trek movies, they have an electrician on the side of the set with a xenon flashlight aiming it at the lens, trying to get lens flares. So when it comes to artistry, I don't think there's. I mean, there are mistakes, but I think the mistakes are getting in the way of trying to communicate what you're communicating. And then there's also technical mistakes that also have the effect of interfering with whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. Either making the footage look totally inappropriate or not recording the footage at all. But when you get artistic stuff,
Yeah.
I wish people would take a lot more chances than they do. It seems like there are trends that that sweep through the industry and everyone jumps on board. And that can be fun. Trying to emulate someone else's look or emulate a popular look is fun. But I also think it's kind of cool when you come up with something on your own and go, hey, that's pretty cool. Or even if you just come up with your own style. I mean, every DP has a style. Things that they like to do. I pride myself on having a lot of different looks on my website, but I think also if you look at my work, there's a certain amount of stuff that I kind of repeat, or the things that I like that appeal to me taste-wise.
Right.
But I'm also trying to push that all the time and trying to find new things that appeal to me. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. Fortunately, I'm at a point where if I look at these things and say, oh, that really didn't work, a lot of the times the people I'm working for don't notice.
Yeah.
Because what I'm looking at is so subtle or so obscure or whatever else. And I actually did a lot of that earlier on in my career when I shot a lot of corporate video. Because I could take all the stuff I learned in the feature film and television worlds when I was in LA, and then I moved out of LA back to the San Francisco Bay Area where I was from because I couldn't stand LA anymore. And
You're
in
not
the
the only
corporate
one.
video world, the tastes are not very sophisticated.
Yeah.
So I try all the stuff I was seeing on feature film sets, on low-end corporate videos, and if I screwed something up, nobody noticed.
Uh-huh.
I was the one,
Did
so
they,
it
did
was a
they
great way to practice.
appreciate? Did they appreciate your efforts to try visually? I mean, they might not know what you're doing, but when they saw it, did they like say, "Wow, that's cool," or just went right over their head?
Sometimes I remember one time this producer asked my sound person, because we were doing a lot of stuff where it was just me and a sound person and this producer. She said, "So, what? How does Art have the camera set up to get those beautiful images?" And my sound guy says, he just shot it that way." No, no, what are the camera settings?
Yeah.
No camera settings. It's
Yeah.
just the way he shot it.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was so funny. And I see a lot of that now with people really getting wrapped up in, the whole thing about what a lot of times the camera gets booked before I do. Um, Particularly on red shoots, because people are so wrapped up in the mystique of the red camera that people call me and say, "Yeah, we have a red shoot. Are you available?" And I say, "Well, what makes it a red shoot?"
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and about 50% of the time it works, and the other 50% of the time I have to back them out and say, I can suggest something else that's cheaper or more technically appropriate or whatever else. But people are really more interested in having something solid, like something tangible. Like, this camera looks good. It bothers them a lot more to say that person makes pretty pictures, because they don't really know why that is.
Yeah.
And they don't always understand, like, that sometimes, I mean, we try to be consistent, but sometimes if you're being really experimental, sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. And people hate that kind of, ambiguity.
Yeah.
They'd rather say, "Oh, this camera is really awesome. Get that camera. Oh, and get this other guy. He makes pretty pictures."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So listen, that's a lot of like the philosophy that goes
Mhm.
into how to, the headspace that you have to be in and everything. And I know we could drive about that all day, but
Oh, yeah.
here at Big League Film School, what we love to do is we love to dig into some of your work, and we want you to give us some advice. How did you do it? Because that's what it really comes. I mean, you were just basically explaining that. There's things that you did. It didn't just happen, and
Hmm.
definitely wasn't the camera. I'd like to go into this piece that I believe is called by your on live. It's an on live launch or something of that sort. I'll be putting it up for people to see. But I want to
Okay.
discuss. I like this piece because I mean I love so many of the pieces there, but this one is very dramatic. The lighting and etc. And I think that's something that most people cannot. I mean, you need a lot of experience to achieve that. It's not the everything is well lit. It's purposefully, dramatized and etc. So why don't we take a look at the first, not the opening shot, the outdoor shot, but let's go to the first shot indoors,
Oh,
where
that first shot has some interesting stuff going on, though,
Oh, well,
if
then
you
go,
want
let's
to talk
go.
about
Then
that.
let's dig into that one. Let's dig into that first shot. You mean the one that's outdoors with kind of like a green tint on the outside of the
Right.
building? Okay, yeah. Talk to us about that. How did that happen?
Well, so all the moves in this were done on a 4 foot slider because they didn't. We didn't. Nobody wants to rent dollies anymore because that's the dolly grip and track and all that other stuff. So you put a wide lens on, you do a little move, and it's very pretty.
Okay.
This is actually a greenhouse, even though I lit it with cyan light. This was my first shoot with an Arri Alexa, and what's cool about this is that it was a fast turnaround spot. I think 48 hours later, it had to be on the air. So we actually shot this in Rec 709 mode, which is also basically what you see is what you get mode. It's not log. It doesn't get graded. This is what it looked like when we shot it.
Is that the way it's capturing it in camera also? Meaning it's
Yes.
not flat,
Yeah.
it's not very flat, it's really the like you said, what your final image is already baked in?
Right. And it's not the way that people like to use Alexa, and it's
Right.
not the way people should use Alexa. But,
Yeah.
it was the only way I could get it on the job because I knew it was going to do a great job,
Mm,
but there was going to be no time for color correction. There was all
mm.
the visual effects. It had to, leave the set and go straight to the post house. So I wanted to
Interesting.
make sure that, there if we baked the look in, then they didn't have to worry about, post workflow issues with color grading and any of that stuff. But
Yeah.
so it is a greenhouse, but I did some experimenting beforehand. There's a formula I read about in American Cinematographer years ago. There's a guy named Peter James, DP, who shot, what is it, The Missionary, Canadian film, or film shot in Canada, anyways. And some of the night stuff was amazing, and it had this very silvery quality of moonlight that I just loved. And when I read about the gel packs that they used, it was half blue and this weird yellow green gel called White Flame Green. And that was when I first realized, oh, you don't have to make moonlight blue. You can. It's actually kind of cool if it's got a little green something to it.
Uh-huh.
So I tried this. I do that a lot with night stuff, and I tried this with Alexa, and I actually discovered that I had to go to full blue and half plus green in order to get this kind of quality of moonlight I was after. Because Alexa has this thing where it saturates colors up to a point, up to about middle gray, and then from there on, things get brighter, but they don't get more saturated. And that's what happens with film. So what they've done is they've perfectly emulated what film does. So I really had to pour in the saturation to get the kind of interesting moonlight that I wanted. But so this is a Fresnel. I think it's a 2K HMI Fresnel. And what I did here is I stacked cookies together, and I do that a lot. So what I discovered is if you put up one pattern, you get you get one pattern. If you stack them, this weird thing happens where if you get like the lights here, let me
Yeah.
switch over to Skype so I can actually see if you can see what. Okay, so the lights here,
Yeah.
you put one cookie here
Yeah.
and another cookie here. This one ends up being softer. This one ends up being harder.
Oh,
But
wow.
another interesting thing happens where the holes in this cookie become like little apertures and they project the image of what this cookie is doing. So it's almost like you're projecting an image through every hole in this cookie here. It's hard to describe what the look is. There's an article I did on Pro Video Coalition that shows this, but basically you get a really interesting mix of hard and soft overlapping shadows.
That's genius.
And I learned it from looking at sunlight coming through tree leaves. Because
That's what I
if there's
thought
a
was going on here. I thought this was through through some branches or something. It was creating those shadows.
I think there's some branches in there. There's a tree there, but there's also a couple of cookies working as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Uh,
Great.
yeah, basically what happens is when sunlight comes through a tree, the leaves at the top cast a softer shadow than the leaves at the bottom. So when the sunlight's peeking through, and also the holes that the light is coming through from the leaves are very irregular. So you
Yeah.
get this just weird, random, hard, soft, flickery kind of thing going on. And that's what I did here. And I mean, it's just a stupid shot of of the front of a house, but
Yeah.
just by taking two cookies and stacking them up, maybe one 4 feet from the light, the other one, 7 or 8 feet farther out, and then also light going through a tree. There's a tree in the right of frame that's also casting from the shadows. you just get this weird mix of all this different stuff, and it's so random. It looks really interesting. It's not just cookie, you know.
Huh. And so if the camera's here, we got one light over here and one light over there by the tree. Is that what it is? Is it
No,
two?
there's only one light. It's way off the right side of frame. It's
Right side.
actually lighting two sides of the house because the living room is right inside these windows,
Uh-huh.
and the light for the interior stuff is coming through the side windows of the living room, but also spilling across the front of this.
And what?
Well, let me think. I'm trying to think. I might have had one light for the living room and one light for this,
Uh-huh.
but they would have been right next to each other. There's a still somewhere in an article I wrote about this that shows that.
And while we're on that subject, what is the light that's outside being used for going, through the window into the living room? What is it lighting? Is it ambient or is it specific
No,
on
it's
something?
hard. I don't think there's any ambient stuff. I don't think there's much ambient. I don't think I did much fill. Actually, here, let's go on to that first
Yeah. So the
shot looking into the house.
Yes, I
So,
really love this shot. I really love this shot. It's just like got little tinges of light on the where the computer is. There's that a computer on the desk, and then something off to the right there that I'm not sure what is, like a bar maybe or Congos. I'm not even sure what I'm looking at. But it's like just man, I don't understand how you manage to light those little things, but yet the walls are still got that darkness and a little bit of light coming from outside. I mean, just talk to me.
yeah. Sometimes I don't know how I do this either.
Yeah, a little luck
And you
never
kind of
hurts.
walk in, you look around, and you go, I need to pick out. And one thing to think of is I like doing stuff in layers.
Mm,
Um, so that back wall is kind of like a background layer. It's setting the back wall, the set, the defining the back of the set.
mm,
But then we also need to define what's going on in this front area, and this is once again a 4-foot slider move on a very wide lens, just creeping by, and it just looks like I'm doing a 10-foot dolly move, but
yeah,
it's 2 or 3 feet tops, I think.
yeah.
Um, if I remember correctly, there's probably a light coming in through a window. It's probably a small HMI,
Hmm.
just lighting that foreground door that we're coming through. And then the background is there's a light outside that back window. It's raking across the couch, which you can kind of see in the center bottom
Yeah.
of the frame. And it's also lighting up this window. And I'm sure we probably put a net or something outside, to try to cut the light off the window because I needed more punch coming in through the open window to light the couch and the floor, but I didn't want that other window with the frost or whatever that is on that the diffused glass to really light up like daytime. So I'm sure we took that down.
I see.
And then there's something going on in on the laptop. There's probably something small coming in through either on set or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what, but I think a lot of it is just lighting the table, lighting a little piece of table behind the laptop, and then the stuff on the table is just reflecting in the laptop.
So you have one main light outside coming in through that window and hitting the floor a little bit.
The floor and the couch, and lighting up that area of frosted glass on that back window.
Right. And you're saying
The,
maybe
the
you did
light,
some.
another light on the foreground,
Yeah.
lighting up, just putting a little hint of something. And what I really like is there's a highlight right on the edge of the door that's a little shine.
Yes. Yes. Love it.
Yeah, I do that a lot. I try and sometimes hitting stuff with light is fine, but other times it's nice to find that kick angle and get that little highlight thing going on. And it's just a different quality of highlight. I really like it. It's
And
much more
and, and
subtle.
how do you without just relying on luck get it to highlight like that? You're saying you got to play a little bit until boom, there it is. There's that right angle.
Yeah, it's probably something. I mean, usually the way something like this happens is I say, "Hey, aim a light through that window, or aim a light onto this. I want to, bring that up a little bit," and then I'll see that kick show up somewhere by eye, but it won't be in frame, and I'll go, "Ooh, that's pretty cool."
Yeah.
And then I'll say, "Okay, let's raise or lower the light until we bring that into frame and get it in the right spot."
Now
You
let's
know,
take.
there's,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that happens that you
Yeah.
don't always see through the lens. You look around and you go, "Oh, that's cool. Let's move that down." And okay, there it is in the shot.
Yeah. Now let's take it just one step back. When you
Mhm.
started, did you start on was this basically a dark black? Was it black Was it night, dark, completely? You don't see anything in this room. With is that what it was? Is that did you start on a black, canvas basically?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't get to do that very often. And we had done a scout, and I had an idea of where I was going to put that one man light outside the window that's lighting the couch and the floor and all that stuff. The rest of it, kind of had to sort of feel it out once we got there because I don't think we totally knew what the shots were going to be.
Yeah.
This project came together really quickly. It was like you had 2 days notice, and then there was going to be 2 days post.
Yeah.
Oh no, actually, you know what happened? It came together really quickly, and there was going to be a fast turnaround, but the actor wasn't in it
Oh.
originally.
Oh, really?
And the investors saw it and liked it so much they said, "Go back, shoot it again, and put a person in it." So we actually went back a week later. So this is from the first shoot night, and then everything with the guy is from the second shoot night. I totally forgot about that.
But that's even more impressive because you have to match it.
I take a lot of notes. I end up doing this a lot these days. I
That's
shoot a lot
hard.
of stuff for different devices, like iPad screens, for apps and stuff like that. And every time a new device comes out, we got to go back and do it with a different device. So the light the same, frame it the same, and then even on set, sometimes, especially with the visual effects shoots I do, sometimes you get a little carried away, and we missed a shot or we missed something. Okay, let's go back. I open up my notes. Okay, this lens height, this angle.
Oh, really? You so obviously lens and maybe what light you used or whatever. But what else is on your notes? That's really interesting.
Uh, Most important ones, I mean, for the shoot, generally, I pick, the ISO, whatever I'm shooting the camera at, make some notes of what looks I've got dialed in. But for each shot, I'm writing down usually camera height, focal length, stop, and distance to the subject.
Wow.
And with that, you can usually look at like a screen grab of something you shot earlier and say, okay, blah, 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 here's the frame, go.
Bam.
And then I also go through and like record what the main lights are doing. I'll do a little lighting diagram and key fill backlight and whatever else is going on.
Oh,
Because
I'd like to get that. I'd like to get those diagrams.
yeah, they're pretty rudimentary. They're pretty. I'm trying to come up with a way to do it a little
Yeah.
better. I've been using a notebook with Evernote because you can take a picture of the
Sure.
notebook
Sure.
and then store it in Evernote, and it's just always on your phone, so it's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
handy.
Yeah.
But
Well,
this is from
let's.
the feature world.
Yeah.
'Cause when I worked on features as a camera assistant, I was expected to record all this stuff
Yeah.
because you went back for reshoots. You had to hand this to the DP and say, "Here's what you did."
Uh-huh. Very interesting. Very interesting. Reshoots. Okay. So let's move along. I want to cover a
Right?
bunch of shots here. The next one is obviously there's got to be some trick up your sleeve how you made this lightning look, for the toys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us how you went about that.
So the concept for the spot was that there's this weird flickering light, and we don't know what it is, and we finally see it. It's this flickering TV.
Hmm.
Um, and originally, it was going to be a teaser video with flickering light, and then it stops, and then the On Live logo comes up. But then later on, when we added the person back in, it ended up being gameplay. Um, the trick with that is that there's no light that will flicker as fast as a TV will,
Hmm.
and the TV alone wasn't bright enough to do the job.
Hmm.
And the director had built up this flickering effect with colors and flashes and stuff like that. So what we did, we rigged a platform over the TV and put a video projector on it. And the video projector is
Oh,
being fed by the same
genius.
feed that's feeding the TV,
Oh,
and that's what's
genius.
lighting the room.
Oh, great. That's great. I would have never came up with that.
I learned it on a corporate job years ago where they do something similar and project screens on people and just realized that the transition between bright and dark was really, really fast.
Yeah.
And yeah, this worked great. It was bright enough, fortunately. I wasn't sure if it was going to be bright enough. I had done some tests with Alexa, and Ari says rated at 800. I was happier at 400.
Hmm.
And I looked at the noise level and I kind of went, I like clean images, so I'm going to shoot it at 400.
Hmm.
And the visual effects post house actually called me up because they had another project in there at the same time with an Alexa that had been rated at 800. So I get this phone call from them. They say, "What are you doing?" And of course, those are the phone calls you hate getting.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, oh God, what did I screw up?" And they said, "Your stuff is so easy to work with. This
What is
other
it?
job is driving us nuts." And it turned out the other job was just a little bit too noisy, and that really happened, helped on this one because it was a pretty fast turnaround, and because there was no noise, they could key really easily. Sometimes if there's too much noise and you're dropping in an element, it looks too clean, and
Yeah.
you gotta
Oh.
dirty it up so it
Uh-huh.
matches, and that's really difficult. So
So you were
so
getting
yeah,
some
the video
noise.
projector at 400, I was a little nervous.
So you were getting some noise, but that's what you wanted, just a little bit in this case, or
No, in this case, I wanted just clean.
clean? Yeah. So now,
Um,
how were you
yeah,
able to know that on set? Did you have, like transfer the footage over to a big how do you?
I consult for DSC Labs, and they send me some cool charts, including a dynamic range chart
Mm,
that has 21 steps. Each one is one stop darker than the other.
yeah.
And that you can aim a camera at it and see on a waveform, exactly how many stops you have from highlights to middle gray to the darkest shadow. And when you look at the quality of and actually I could have probably done this on set, but basically when I looked at the bottom of the curve, the bottom steps on the waveform, if they're really clean, the steps will be very thin. If the noisier they are, the thicker those steps are.
Oh, it's a
So
big
what
tip.
I did
Big
was
tip.
I looked, and you can do this on set. You can put the lens cap on
Okay.
and look at a waveform, and and change the ISO and go, yeah, that's pretty thin, on the waveform. So that means like nice and clean, and then as you change the ISO and get faster, it gets thicker and thicker and thicker. And after a while, you get a sense
Yeah.
for what your taste in noise is.
Mm.
But I just seen that I liked Alexa at 400 because I thought it was much cleaner, and so I just went with it. And it was just pure luck that the visual effects house was happy too.
Okay, let's move along to this next shot. This is my favorite shot in terms of
Oh, and
yeah,
also I just want to point out
sure.
when the flickering effect isn't on, there's a single tube kinoflow
Ah.
just below, adding a little bit of glow to the character so you can see them between flickers.
Uh-huh. But that also seemed to be very like focused on no?
So
Okay, here we go. I knew there's something going on.
here's another one. Well, it's a really simple concept, but it's funny. Even my crew don't get stuff like this.
Okay.
It, a kinoflow is very wide in one dimension and very thin in another. So in the wide dimension, it'll wrap around objects. Like if I have this in front of my face, it'll wrap around my face, and I won't have a nose shadow. It'll be very soft.
Yeah.
But in this dimension, it's very hard. So if I raise the light up, in this dimension, I'll get a very sharp nose shadow because the light is a very hard light
Wait a
in
minute,
one
wait a minute.
dimension.
Time out. Let me see if I understand.
Yeah,
My finger right now is the tube. That's the Kino tube. You're trying to tell
right.
me depending how high and how low certain parts of the, top or bottom of the bulb is
Well, think of it in a way as two bulbs. You've got one that's really wide and soft, and one that's very narrow and small.
okay.
So narrow and small light sources cast hard shadows.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
Wide soft sources are soft.
Yeah.
Now this is basically a hard and a soft source in one because, like I said, in the horror, if the bulb is like that, it'll wrap around your face horizontally, so
Okay.
you won't get a nose shadow going this way or this way.
Okay. Okay.
But it's a very small bulb
Sure.
in this dimension, so if I raise it up, I'll start getting a very sharp nose shadow here. There'll
Uh-huh.
be, so
Uh-huh.
if I put this light over here, I'll get almost no nose shadow going this way horizontally because the kinoflow is very soft horizontally.
Uh-huh.
But I'll get a sharp nose shadow going this way because it's very hard and
Yeah.
small
Yeah.
this way. If I go like that, I'll now get a very hard nose shadow going this way, but I'll get no nose shadow going this way.
Okay. I'm hearing you, but I'm very visual. Bottom line is, I would have to see you do this and watch it
Yeah,
on the face.
it's tough. So
Yeah.
basically what I did was I took the bulb. Here's the bookshelf, and I took the bulb like this and sort of worked it close to the bookshelf in such a way that I could cut it very precisely because it's a very small light source, you know, as far as the thickness of the tube goes. If I line it up with the shelf, I can cut it very
I can't see your
precisely in
hand.
one axis.
I can't see your hand. You're under
Oh,
the.
sorry.
Bring it up a little
So,
bit. Yeah.
here's the bookshelf.
Oh,
Here are the toys.
okay.
But if I put the bulb like this, it would
Okay.
spill everywhere because it would wrap this way.
Okay.
But by putting it like this,
Uh-huh.
I can cut it very precisely because, as far as the toys can tell, the bulb is very thin, and the bookshelf cuts it very precisely, like this.
So
If I
you
go like that, then it's like everywhere. But like this,
get out
I
of
can.
town. Unbelievable. So you're trying to tell me that you're cutting what you're not using anything external to cut other than the bookshelf.
No, I'm just moving it in and out from the bookshelf, and by keeping the long edge of the light parallel to the long edge of the bookshelf, and because the light itself in that dimension is very small, I can get a very fine cut.
Uh-huh. Wow. Okay.
It's tough. Try it with a Kinoflow sometime. Look at an object and go, light it this way and look what happens with the shadows, and then turn the bulb this way and look
Right.
what happens.
Right.
You get
Right.
very different effects.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, that's I got a homework assignment now. So,
Okay.
uh, yeah, next shot. Next shot. I mean, my goodness, we're not going to get
All
through
right.
too many
Next shot.
shots, but yeah, the next shot of him in the living room. This one, I got to tell you, I just got to understand how do you get these little lights here, little lights there. You know what I'm saying? You got shadows. You got so many shadows and so much light. It almost seems like you'd have a thousand. You'd have to cut the heck out of it. I don't know how you did it. So,
It's it this wasn't super hard. It was mostly the light outside and going out and telling my electric crew a little bit that way, a little bit up, a little bit that way. And also, you know, there's a trick I use a lot. If I think a lot of the times in terms of what can the light see.
mm,
And if there's something on the set, like if I'm looking at this shot and the right side of the TV has a lot of light, but the left side of the TV doesn't, I'll go over and just stick my head in that dark spot and see what's blocking the light. And then I can tell my crew, move it a little that way, move it a little, and then when I see the light, I know that the light is hitting me
yeah.
and hitting where I want the light to fall.
Yeah, so you
So
so
I can,
you make sure your
there's a
eyes you use your eyes to connect with the light, and then you know when it's when it's making contact.
right, and like we've got a little light hitting the handle of that guitar. Well,
Yes.
there at some point there probably wasn't, so I just stick my head over there and go stop. And when I can see the light can see me, and it's going to light that spot, and then I can come back and see what I've done to screw up everything else, and then it's a
Yeah.
balancing act.
So, but it seems like you would need multiple lights to do that. Are you using how many? Because
I
because because if you tried to get that guitar, then you might get the too much of the TV. On and on. You want to
and we
tell me there's one light coming in from the right side of the screen? I can't believe that.
I think we did that all with one light, and I think we probably flagged off the TV.
Uh huh.
Maybe. I mean, it depends on how much light it kicked back, but it looks like we probably flagged it somehow. But yeah, I mean, basically, it's just the back wall and the table are mostly lit by the light outside, and the guy and part of the table are being lit by a light panel. That's a C-stand kind of armed out
Yeah.
overhead,
Uh, kind of pointing down more.
down and a little back.
Uh huh.
You can see on the guy's arm, it's very kind of top lit.
Yeah.
You can also see the highlight in the top of the couch.
Right.
It's
That's
kind of shifted over towards the right, so that you can tell that the light is kind of on the right side of frame, because if it was over on the left, you'd see the highlight on the left side of the couch.
right. We'd get the left side of his cheek a little bit more too. Um, yeah.
Right.
So
And that's one of the tricks with night and dark is you always want to come from an angle that leaves you lots of shadows. So that's usually top or behind or really far to the side.
right. The light that's coming in from outside is it shooting through some things that are blocked? Like is it shooting through like window frames and whatnot, or is it like purely going in?
It's an old house in Berkeley, and I think it's depression era glass. So you can see some of the it's like water glass, so it's got texture to it.
Ah, there we
So it's a
go.
combination of the window frames and the. Oh, and I wonder if it was raining that night. One of the nights it was raining. I don't remember if that was that.
Uh-huh.
Let me see if it's moving. No, it's not moving. Yeah, I'm guessing it's like depression water glass.
All right. Okay.
And
Uh,
and sometimes that's a Fresnel, and I went with really hard shadows there. But sometimes I'll use a par because par shadows are kind of sloppy. But that's kind of fun too because natural light is really perfect.
uh-huh. Well, why don't you break that down to us real quick? Why did you use a Fresnel? What's the difference that a Fresnel does that would make you want to use it that that worked to your advantage here?
Well, excuse me. Um, Fresnels are not very efficient lights. They don't give you a ton of punch, but they cast very sharp shadows, and their fields are very even. So if you're going to have a pool of light and you want it to be very even, a Fresnel is a great light for that. And if you want to cast a very sharp shadow, a Fresnel is great for that. PARs are basically just brute force lights.
Hmm.
Um, PAR is short for parabolic reflector, so there's a metal reflector with a bulb in front of it. And then typically you put you have a selection of three or four lenses, like a wide, a medium, and a tight, that you can drop in front of it, and they look like car headlight
Okay. Yeah.
lenses.
Yeah.
And they tend to be really kind of sloppy. They usually spread the beam more in one direction, like so they make it like a wide band instead of a pool of light. Or the shadows are a little soft or a little funky. It's like lighting with an open face 2K or 1K,
Yeah.
as compared to like a 1K Fresnel.
Yeah.
But they put out a ton of light. My gaffer gave me a rule of thumb that if a Fresnel and a par of the same strength, you'll get you'll get you'll get 30% of the amount of light out of the Fresnel than you will the par. Yeah, so if you have a 4K Fresnel and a 4K par, the 4K Fresnel will put out 30% of the light that a 4K par will.
Hmm.
So if you want a bounce light, pars are just great. Just smack them into stuff. They bounce around, really bright.
Yeah.
But for precise shadows, maybe not so good.
Right.
But at the same time, sloppy light is kind of cool. So
Yeah.
sometimes I will light with open face lights through a window because then the window frame becomes kind of weird and
Yeah.
soft, and
Yeah.
maybe it's an overcast day outside. So
Let me ask you a question. Do you ever use? I mean, obviously not on. How often do you use the DSLRs? You know, everything that's going on with them right now with the 5D and
every once in
whatnot.
a while,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you know, right now one of the big things with the DSLRs that's helping the lower budget end of things is Magic Lantern, allowing you to have all kinds of like histograms and waveforms on the camera which you wouldn't have had before.
Mhm.
Um, First of all, do you use that much? And if you use it, do you care Magic Lantern? Not? Are you using do you have other monitors that are giving you all that kind of stuff? Etc.
I definitely pay attention because your eye can be fooled really easily. And
Yeah.
and on location, monitors rarely end up being in a perfect environment. You've always got stray light.
Yeah.
And also, since we're all shooting log now, and with when the Red One came out, uh, everyone said, "Oh well, we're just going to grade it later, so we don't need a good monitor on the set." And then at the same time, all the Panasonic 17-inch LCDs came out, the 1700 and 1710s, which are all yellow green.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to figure out what you were doing.
Yeah.
But it's at the same time you need some objective way of knowing what your exposure is. Because if you got a lot of ambient light, maybe things look a little brighter than they are, a little washed out. Um,
Well, let me start by asking you, what is your um, tool of choice that you want to keep your eye on? Is it a histogram? Is it a waveform?
I
Is
like
it
waveforms because waveforms will give me an idea of where something is in the frame,
yeah,
whereas histograms don't.
right.
Histograms are great for just getting all the information, you know, in the middle of the frame where you can push it around.
Yeah.
I like to be precise though. I don't want to expose to the right, or I don't want to, I want to put things pretty much where I want them because
Uh-huh.
I don't get invited to be part of the grade so much anymore.
Hmm.
So I'd rather send them stuff that's as close to what I want as I can because then the odds are that they'll go, hey, this looks pretty good already, and leave most of it alone.
Yeah.
If you give them a thick negative that they have to push around, then they're going to go, oh, great, and they'll start doing
Yeah.
whatever they want to it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. 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 Okay.
although
Very.
when I'm shooting doc style, shooting really quick, I will use a histogram, and because then all I'm really concerned about is just getting it all there so we can fix it later.
Right. Well, Art, we covered a whole lot so far, and I want to keep on going. But we have, I want to let everybody kind of give them a sneak peek, let them know that soon we're going to have a unbelievable cinematography event that, for the time being, is hush hush, but we'll be announcing it soon. And we're really happy that you're going to be involved in that. And we'll pick one of these. You'll be taking one of these areas that we discussed today, or another one. People will have to tune in to find out what it is exactly, and
Mm-hmm.
and really dig into it and give them a lot of information on that. That's going to be exciting. Um, again, we can't thank you enough for the time that you're giving the community, because we don't have access to this level of it's not at our fingertips. We have to get on set. We have to, so to be able to have these kind of conversations and to hear these little, sometimes they're very actionable, and even if they're not, just to get that bigger picture of what's going on, it really helps us, and then it keeps us inspired to push and to get there. And maybe we could end on one little inspirational words by you on what does it take to go from you weren't a top DP all the time. You had to get there. So how does a person go from, he's got a camera, he's out there, he's doing little projects for a local community and stuff like that. He's doing maybe commercials, and he's doing well, and he's got a good look. People are impressed. But there's a
Mm-hmm.
difference between that and shooting, a commercial for top brands like you're doing. So how do you, what does it take to get to that, get to that step?
A big part of it is people won't hire you to shoot something unless you've already shot it. So I'm still doing. When I meet new directors, occasionally I'll still do spec spots, which are just basically you find a product that you want to, and a look that you want to emulate,
Mm,
and you shoot it just to add something new to your reel. And that works for directors and DPs, which is why I'm constantly, looking for new directors who are, talented, and, hopefully they're looking for people like me, and then we join forces and build each other's reels.
oh, interesting.
But once someone sees that you've done something that they like, and it looks a lot like what they want the next project to look like, then you're suddenly in the running.
Amazing.
Um,
Amazing.
hmm?
Well, let me see if I understood this correctly. Pick what kind of work you want to be in. So, that's the kind of stuff I want to do. Okay, now go out and start doing it on your own, so that can say, hey, look, I can do this kind of work. And then now you've upped your odds, something to show to get that kind of work that you're interested in.
Right. And, it helps if you team up with people who are, headed the same direction, because then you can all help each other out.
Mm,
But yeah, that's basically why people make low budget features. Everyone wants to, get ahead in the feature film world, but nobody's going to hire you to direct a big feature until
yeah,
they know that you can do it successfully at all. So
right.
that's why people pull their resources, go out and shoot small features,
Yeah,
low budget features, and try to do a good job just with the resources they have.
right,
And then if you can pull that off, and it
right,
usually takes a few tries,
right.
but that's when you start getting attention, because
Uh,
people go, what people want is reliability and consistency. They want to know that if they hire you, you are not going to screw them out of money. You're
in
not going to cost them money. You're
in
going to deliver.
yeah,
And that's what makes careers. It's not always creativity. Creativity is kind of what you sneak in around the edges. What people really want to see is that you can be solid and reliable and
that's
deliver no
amazing.
matter what. If
That's
you can do
amazing.
that, then that's
I gotta tell you,
you're
that's heartbreaking to hear. To be honest,
it's what
I said it's heartbreaking to hear that. To be honest, you know what I mean. No, I'm not saying.
it,
Obviously, you
yeah.
want to be solid. That to me is like the starting point. But I would hope in my fantasy world that they would want. Oh, I love that look. I love his style. That's what I want. You're saying first they want reliability, and then okay, a little bit of artsy.
I know other commercial DPs or my competition who get a lot of work, not because they do anything particularly creative, but that they can go in and just kick ass, in a 10 or 12-hour day and deliver something that looks fine,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
have a reputation for doing that.
Yeah.
When I started out, I did some work in episodic television, and TV back then in the late '80s, early '90s, when I was an assistant, nobody really cared about how good it looked.
Mm.
Now TV shows have to look as good as features, but back then nobody cared. It was all about making the day, shooting 10 pages a day, shooting an episode in anywhere from 5 to 7 days, and just getting it out the door. And once you became that good, then you could start sneaking in stuff.
Interesting. Interesting.
And it's still, to a certain extent, is kind of like that. I mean, first and foremost, people want to know that you're going to make the day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
They have a
secondary to
they
that
have a
is,
lot
can you
of
make it look good?
yeah, they have a lot of money riding on it, and they need to reduce their risk as much as possible. So if you can show that you can do that, then you're in the running.
Right. Because ultimately, when someone's putting up money for a feature, sure, they want it to look great, but they also want to know it's going to get finished.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
So,
Art, this was awesome. I keep trying to make these short, and it's never successful, but that's okay. I think people, love all the information. I can't wait for this event to come together and for everybody to hear the full extent of your knowledge on a specific topic for the cinematography event that we got coming along. So we'll keep everybody posted on that. And once again, thank you so much, my friend.
you're welcome, and I'm really looking forward to that event. I can't wait.
Take it easy, buddy.